let's talk about the Canelo Crawford fight that happened this past weekend. First of all, shout out to both fighters. Shout out to Canelo for taking the fight. Shout out to Crawford coming in, taking advantage of the opportunity and maximizing the moment. Look, it was a good fight, action-packed fight where Crawford, he handled the rhythm of the fight. They were fighting on Crawford terms. Canelo Alvarez was looking for Crawford, couldn't find Crawford all night. And that's how I saw the fight taking shape. Going into the fight, I was leaning towards Crawford, but didn't really have a horse in the race. I wanted to see Crawford win, but if Canelo was to take the W, I was fine with that too. And getting closer to the fight, as the fight began, I hit up my brother and asked him if he was watching the fight. And he said he had put money down on Terence Bud Crawford. And he had put money down on Terence Bud Crawford because him and I had a conversation earlier in the day, and he asked me who that I saw winning. And I had told him I saw Crawford winning. I told him that it was going to be the punches, in between punches, that was going to make the difference. That this was a fight where I was going to see Canelo Alvarez bruised up at the end of the fight, not by big power shots, but by those inside punches that Crawford delivers really good. And that's because when fighters such as Errol Spence or Canelo Alvarez load up to throw a big power shot, Crawford is tapping them every single time. And when Crawford's a southpaw, he's not tapping them with a jab. He's tapping them with a power jab that stuns their opponents and stops them in their tracks. So that's how I saw Crawford winning the fight before seeing the actual fight. And that's pretty much what happened in the fight. Look, it was a good fight. I think I scored the fight. The first few rounds, they were hard to judge. They were swing rounds. I saw Crawford having the momentum, but any close round, for example, the first round, I gave it to Canelo because Canelo is a champion. Canelo is a cash cow. And I was trying to put myself in the mindset of the judges that any close round in a close fight typically goes to the champion. So the first half of the fight was close. I had Canelo winning the first round, then Crawford winning the next 2 or 3 rounds, then Canelo taking over, winning 1 or 2 rounds, and then eventually it was all Crawford in the second half of the fight. Canelo Alvarez just couldn't get off his punches. Like I mentioned, Crawford stopped him in his tracks every single time. But I never really saw Crawford in trouble. I never really saw Canelo in trouble. Both of them look like they were in good shape. That being said, if the fight was to continue, Crawford would have dominated. And if they were to fight again, Crawford would beat Canelo each and every time. Styles make fights. And if you follow the channel, you know I've been a big Canelo critic for the past few years. And I'll get to that in just a moment, but let me wrap up the fight because I also want to get into what's next for Canelo Alvarez, what's next for Terence Bud Crawford, what does this say about Canelo Alvarez's legacy, and what does this say about Terence Bud Crawford's legacy? But to wrap up the fight, folks, it was a good fight. Neither fighter dominated the other fighter where it was noticeable. Crawford controlled the rhythm. Crawford got the best of Canelo, and Canelo Alvarez looked frustrated throughout the fight. Simply could not get off his punches, and there's levels to this. He knew he was in there with a real one. The fight went to the scorecards, and Crawford took the victory there. Okay, so let's get to what's next for both fighters, and then at the end I'll get to what does this say about each fighter's legacy. So from Canelo Alvarez's perspective, look, he's 35 years old, he made tons of money, and for a while now Canelo Alvarez has just been maximizing the bag, taking low risk, taking high rewards. He fought Edgar Berlanga, he fought Skull. Who else he fought? He fought Munguia. These are fighters who are not A-plus fighters. These are fighters who are not elite fighters. These are fighters that don't necessarily belong in the ring against the pound for pound boxing king, whatever pedestal you want to put Canelo Alvarez in. These are fighters that are not in Canelo's level. Anyhow, Canelo Alvarez fought them, and you saw the results tonight. He fought a bunch of B-level fighters, C-plus level fighters. Once he gets in there with an A-plus fighter, that's what happens. So Canelo Alvarez has been maximizing his bag for a while. That being said, I don't think Canelo Alvarez can go out and simply fight a C-class fighter and expect to get $100 million anymore. I don't think Canelo Alvarez can go and fight a random fighter and have all the people tune in to watch him. Canelo Alvarez, if he is looking to get paid again, he is going to have to get a rematch with Terence Crawford, or he is going to have to fight David Benavidez. But at this point, the David Benavidez fight is too late. He should have taken the David Benavidez fight before fighting Terence Crawford. Reason being is that even though if he goes up and he fights David Benavidez, at that point, what is in it for Benavidez other than money? Benavidez wanted Canelo when Canelo was on a winning streak, when Canelo was being called the king of boxing. That's when Benavidez wanted Canelo. He wanted to show that he was better than Canelo. But now Benavidez is probably going to be asking for a Crawford fight. And look, I don't think Crawford's going up to 175 to fight Benavidez. And I don't see a situation where they can meet at 168 pounds. They're just too... The size difference is massive. But if Crawford decides to go up there and fight David Benavidez, even at 168, man, that says a lot about Terence Crawford. And in that fight, I probably will have to lean towards Benavidez. Anyhow, what's next for Canelo Alvarez? Canelo Alvarez, if he wants to get a big bag, he's going to have to look for a rematch against Terence Crawford. That being said, I don't see Canelo Alvarez beating Crawford. Styles makes fight. Crawford has Canelo Alvarez's number. What's next for Terence Crawford? That's where it gets interesting. Terence Crawford is now at the top of the hill. Terence Crawford can pick and choose, and he should. Look, Bud Crawford has been denied of glory all throughout his career. He's been denied of fights. He's been denied of becoming the superstar he became last night. And I think Terence Crawford at this point needs to maximize his bag. He's going to be 38 years old. As we know, in boxing years, that's over the hill. And if he goes in there with one of these young fighters, even though I don't see any young fighter right this moment being able to beat Terence Crawford, but let's say in a year from now, 2 years from now, someone comes into the picture, young lion against old lion, I can see someone beating Terence Crawford. So when young, someone who has the energy, someone who goes in there and is not scared of taking risks. But at the moment, I don't see no one like that. So my point of view is that Terence Crawford should call out folks like Manny Pacquiao, should call out folks like Money Mayweather, should get the rematch against Canelo Alvarez. Those are fights that are going to bring a big lucrative bag for Terence Crawford, and he deserves it. But other than that, I don't see Terence Crawford fighting a Jaron Boots Ennis, even though that would be a good fight. I don't see Terence Crawford fighting a Virgil Ortiz, even though that would be a good fight. I just don't see Terence Crawford needing to take any of those big risks right now at this point in his career. He got the bag, he got the glory, collect some more money, and call it a career. So that's what I think Crawford should do. But now let's go ahead and get into the legacies of each fighter. Look, the legacy of Crawford is pretty much set in stone. Undisputed at 140 pounds, undisputed at 147 pounds, went up to 168 pounds and became undisputed. And if he wanted to, I can see him becoming undisputed at 160, 154 pounds, going down there, collecting the belts. But that would take time. And Crawford's 38 years old. He just simply doesn't have that kind of time in boxing years. So, look, his legacy is set in stone. His resume is good. He went in there, he fought the champions. Even though he doesn't have big names on his resumes like Canelo, and I'll get to Canelo's legacy in a moment. Even though he doesn't have those big names, when he fought his opposition, when he fought Posto, when he fought Gamboa, when he fought Burns, when he fought Spence, when he fought Indango, when he fought all these fighters, they were at the top of their career. They were the best opposition out there for Terence Crawford. Yes, they didn't have the fancy names, they didn't have the marketing machine behind them, but they were la creme de la creme. And that's what happened last night. Terence Crawford has been fighting elite opposition at their best moment all throughout his career, and Canelo Alvarez has been doing the opposite. So now let's get to Canelo Alvarez's legacy. Look, Canelo Alvarez is a fighter, and look, all the Canelo fans out there, shout out to Canelo fans. I've been very critical of Canelo throughout his career, but I've also given him his credit. I've also given him his flowers. So here's where this conversation is going to get interesting. And if you can't handle the heat, get out the kitchen. If you can't handle the heat, get out the kitchen. So here's what I'm going to say about Canelo. As I have mentioned before in the past in my boxing videos, Canelo Alvarez is a fighter that, in my opinion, was fabricated by Golden Boy. They needed a Hispanic, a Mexican star to become the face of boxing, and Canelo was there. Canelo Alvarez, throughout his 10 years with Golden Boy, he fought some good opponents. He fought some great opponents. When he fought the great opponents, like Floyd Money Mayweather, he got taken to school. When he fought some good opponents, some okay opponents, like Chavez Jr., who else he fought? Man, this guy fought Guzman. He fought a bunch of guys that were not elite fighters, but they were advertised like elite fighters. Anyhow, when he fought some okay opposition, Canelo Alvarez came out on top. But eventually, in his later years with Golden Boy, he got in there against Triple G. Triple G, man, what a boxer. Tremendous boxer, throws punches and bunches, slugger, the type of fan-friendly boxer. He went in there against Triple G. The first fight was a draw. The first fight was a draw. I saw Triple G winning. They made it a draw. The second fight, Canelo Alvarez win. I thought it was closer. I thought it was a draw. And then the third fight, Canelo Alvarez took the W. Those type of fights, I have always given Canelo Alvarez credit for. But it's all the other fights, the Munguias, the Berlangas, those fighters that do not belong in the ring against Canelo Alvarez. Think about it. He fought Sugar Shane Mosley when Sugar Shane Mosley was old, over the hill, had no business inside the ring against Canelo. Same with Miguel Cotto. He fought an older Miguel Cotto. So that's what I'm saying. Even though Canelo Alvarez has the name, if you're a true boxing fan, you're not just looking at the names. You're looking at when is he fighting these fighters. So, look, let's go back to his legacy. Canelo Alvarez is going to have a big question mark in his legacy. People are going to start scrutinizing the opponents he fought and when he fought them, because now he's fighting an elite fighter who's moving up 2 weight classes. In reality, 3 weight classes. Even though his last fight was 154 pounds, that was a stepping stone. Terence Crawford was champion at 147. Terence Crawford fought at 147. Multiple fights. Went up 1 fight to 154, then went up to 168 to fight Canelo Alvarez. Those are 3 weight classes that he's going up from 147 pounds. And Canelo Alvarez getting beat, getting dominated like that says a lot about his legacy. So question mark on Canelo Alvarez's legacy. Folks, before I wrap it up, let me just quickly touch on what I saw last night post-fight interview. So post-fight interview, Canelo Alvarez realized he lost the fight. He wasn't in denial like when B-Ball beat Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, after the fight, expressed that he believed he won the fight. We saw him lose the fight. He wasn't in denial, and I could see that he knew he lost the fight. I can also see that he knows that if he gets in the ring again against Terence Crawford, he will lose the fight again. But what I saw from the YouTube community, from the media, it was a bit sad. Not so much from the YouTube community, because the YouTube community, they don't really have, they might be fan of someone, but they don't have alliances to networks, to a marketing machine, to companies, to brands. So they're just going to speak their mind. And that's part of the reason you guys come here to YouTube. You want to hear the real thing. But seeing some of the interviews post-fight, it was funny because some of those anchors who I have seen kiss up to Canelo Alvarez, brown nose around Canelo Alvarez, defend Canelo Alvarez. Some of those folks were highly critical of Canelo Alvarez. It was like they had been waiting for this moment all their life. It was like, again, anyone who follows boxing knows that Canelo Alvarez was a good fighter, but not necessarily a great fighter. They know that Canelo Alvarez, some of his fights has been handpicked, and they know what they see in the ring. But those anchors, those reporters, they know that, but they have to do a job, and they have to report back to their bosses, a network, a marketing brand, and so on. So they their opinion is compromised. Anyhow, last night after the fight, I saw a lot of these reporters go in on Canelo Alvarez, questioning his resume, questioning his career, just being extremely critical of him. And it was kind of sad, again, because they switch up. Prior to the fight, it was so fun and games. It was Canelo's the best, Canelo's the man, Canelo is the best thing, so on, all that in a bag of chips. But after the fight, they were extremely critical. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm one of those fans that have been critical of Canelo Alvarez. And I've always knew there was going to be a moment in time that Canelo Alvarez was going to have to face an elite fighter, and he was going to be exposed. I knew that was coming, because if you hang in boxing long enough, that's going to happen. And when it happened last night, I wasn't jumping around. I wasn't dancing. It's just like, I knew it. I knew that was going to happen. But it didn't really excite me. It didn't prove me right. It didn't do much to me. It was just good to see Terence Crawford finally get the respect he deserves. But Canelo Alvarez, as a fighter, as a person, I don't have any issue with him as a person. I like Canelo Alvarez for the things he does outside the ring. As a family man, I like Canelo Alvarez the way he guides his family. We've seen the videos. As a fighter, I like Canelo Alvarez, goes in and throws punches and bunches, makes it a show. The only thing that I was not a fan of is sometimes Canelo Alvarez has a bit of arrogance, where we know, as a true boxing fan, we know who he has been in the ring with, but Canelo Alvarez sometimes would express that he's been in the ring against the best. I remember seeing a Canelo Alvarez interview, and he was expressing that people always have something to say. That at first they had something to say because something like, oh, this was when people were calling out Benavidez, and he would respond was like, yeah, people always have something to say. They used to mention Triple G, they used to mention Trout, they used to mention Lara, they used to mention Sugar Shane, they used to mention Cotto, they used to mention Munguia, and so on. I was like, hold up a second. No one asked you to fight Trout. No one was asking you to fight Munguia. No one was asking you to fight an old Miguel Cotto. No one was asking you to fight Sugar Shane Mosley. So, look, man, he got in over his head, and that's the only thing I wasn't a fan of Canelo Alvarez. But other than that, much love to Canelo. Great family man. Does a lot of things outside the ring to support the community, and good boxer. Puts in a show. But yeah, shout out to Canelo. Shout out to Terence Crawford. Well deserved. Terence Crawford, the face of boxing. Folks, if this is your first time to the channel, you made it to the end of the video, hit that subscribe button. This is the heavy hitter channel. Back in the day, I used to drop videos every single day. But look, I want to come in and just do videos when there's big topics to talk about. Sometimes it got to the point where I felt like I was forcing topics every single day, forcing a topic every single day, and it wasn't coming out natural. So look, now I have a few other things happening in my life, a few side projects, so I can't be as dedicated to this boxing channel as I used to be, where I was constantly dropping videos after videos. But when it comes to the big fights, when it comes to the fights that people are talking about, especially now with Turkey being involved in the sport of boxing, I'll be dropping a few videos before the fight, after the fight, giving you my point of view. And look, I'll keep it entertaining, it'll be insightful, and it'll be thoughtful. So hit that subscribe button, join the family, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.